This video will show you how to assemble the RadMission 1. Photograph all four sides of the box and the label with the serial numbers. Make sure the label is easy to read and keep the photos for your records. Open the bike box and get a friend to help you carefully lift the bike out of the box. Rest it on the rear wheel and front fork protector plate and ensure the bike is stable. Remove the small box from the bottom of the bike box. This contains the owner's manual, charger, headlight, pedals, handlebar stem faceplate hardware, the top cap bolt cover, and a set of 2 keys, and the assembly toolkit. Take photos of the packaged bike and keep the photos for your records. This can be helpful for safely repackaging and shipping your bike in the future. Remove the packaging material from everything except the handlebars and hubs of the wheels for now. Snip the zip ties to remove the front wheel and set it aside, and make sure you don't touch the brake rotor. Recycle the packaging material according to local rules, or keep it in case you want to ship your bike in the future. The assembly toolkit contains a variety of tools to help with assembly. You will use many, but not all of these tools to assemble the bike. We also recommend using a pair of flat side cutters, a 15mm pedal wrench, a bike pump with a Schrader valve and pressure gauge, a torque wrench with a set of Allen bits, bicycle grease, and a friend to help with assembly. Start by rotating the stem and front fork so the front brake cable is on the rider's left side and no cables are wrapped around the back of the head tube. Remove the packaging from the handlebar. Locate the bag with the handlebar stem faceplate and hardware and the headlight. Ensure each bolt has a washer in place and set the bolts, the faceplate, and the headlight aside near the handlebar. Locate the headlight. Rotate the headlight downward away from the bracket, which will allow room to access the bolts during installation. Prepare the handlebar stem faceplate hardware and headlight for installation, as shown. Orient the handlebars so the brake levers face forward and the LED display is on the rider's left side, which also has the brake caliper. Place the handlebar into position as shown. Trace the brake cable from the left brake lever to the brake caliper and make sure the bundle of cables is not twisted. Center the handlebar using the adjustment markings and ensure the display is accessible to the rider. Use a 4mm Allen wrench to tighten the bottom bolts until they are just snug enough to make contact with the headlight mount. Tighten the top 2 bolts just to the point where the captive washers make contact with the recesses in the stem faceplate. Then torque the bottom faceplate bolts evenly, 1/4 turn at a time and alternating between bolts, torqued to 6 Nm. Repeat with the top bolts, tightening evenly, 1/4 turn at a time and alternating between bolts, torqued to 6 Nm. Ensure the headlight bracket does not move once the faceplate is secured. If it does, contact product support for assistance. Locate the headlight connector ends. Line up the internal notch and pins and external arrows and press directly together without twisting to connect. To adjust the angle of the headlight, adjust the angle slightly downward so it will illuminate the road ahead but not blind oncoming traffic. Then use a 4mm Allen wrench and an 8mm wrench to tighten the bolt, making sure not to over-tighten. Install the top cap bolt cover. Locate the pedals and apply grease to the threaded portion of each pedal axle. Identify each pedal by the sticker on the pedal. The right pedal threads onto the rider's right side. Carefully thread in the pedal by hand, turning clockwise toward the front of the bike. The left pedal threads onto the rider's left side. Carefully thread in the pedal by hand, turning counterclockwise, also toward the front of the bike. Once each pedal is fully threaded into the proper crank, use a 15mm pedal wrench, or a torque wrench with an appropriate 15mm crowfoot bit, to torque each pedal to 35 Nm. Open the quick release lever and remove the seat post. Ensure the seat post clamp is centered over the notch on the seat tube. Note the minimum insertion marking on the seat post and insert it so the marking is completely inside the seat tube. Adjust the seat post up or down to a comfortable height. To secure the seat post properly, ensure the seat post clamp is tight enough before closing the lever. This clamp keeps your seat post secure and should be very tightly closed. To ensure the clamp is very tight, keep the lever open and twist the thumb nut towards the front of the bike to add resistance so the lever is held perpendicular to the bike frame. Slowly close the lever, which should be tight enough that it leaves an imprint in your hand. If too tight to close, open the lever again, twist the thumb nut 1/4 turn toward the back of the bike and attempt to close, repeating as needed. Ensure the seat post does not move once the lever is closed. If you need to adjust the seat forward, backward, or to change the seat's angle, use a 6mm Allen wrench to loosen the seat adjustment bolt. Adjust the seat, making sure to stay within the limit markings on the seat rails, then torque the bolt to 15 Nm. For more information on adjusting the bike for fit and comfort, check out the resources mentioned toward the end of this video. Locate the front wheel, visually inspect both tires and make sure the tire bead is evenly seated around the rim. Use a bike pump with the Schrader valve and a pressure gauge to inflate the tires to the pressure indicated on the tire sidewall.
Begin front wheel installation by removing the packaging from both sides of the front wheel. Do not touch the brake rotor. Rest the wheel gently on its side with the brake rotor facing up. Locate the quick release skewer, holding the front fork in the fork protector plate. Open the lever and remove the thumb nut and cone spring on the opposite side. Remove the skewer from the protector plate, keeping the cam follower and the other cone spring in place. Pass the skewer through the wheel hub, starting from the side without the brake disc or rotor. Reinstall the cone spring on the other side. Both cone springs should point inward toward the wheel hub. Thread the thumb nut just a couple of turns, leaving enough space for the fork dropouts, which are the slots in the fork where the axle goes. Have a friend hold the bike steady and fully upright for the next few steps while you position and secure the wheel. If there's a spacer between the brake pads and the front caliper, remove it now. Make sure the quick release lever is open, then carefully lift the front of the bike, removing it from the protective plate. The fork packaging includes a fork protector plate with a metal spacer rod and some spacers, which may be black plastic or look like thick metal washers. You can recycle these packaging elements according to local rules. Carefully lower the fork onto the wheel. Pay attention to the brake rotor. It needs to slide between the brake pads. Once the rotor is between the brake pads, guide the fork onto the wheel so that the wheel axle enters the fork dropouts. The axle needs to go all the way into the dropouts. If it's difficult to get the brake rotor between the brake pads, you may need to loosen the brake calipers slightly. Use an Allen wrench to widen the gap between the brake pads by turning the inner pad adjuster out or counterclockwise. 2 clicks. Stop after you feel 2 clicks or have turned the adjustment bolt 1/4 to 1/2 of a full rotation. When wheel installation is complete, you can turn the adjuster pad back in, if necessary, to ensure the brakes engage properly. Check that the wheel is centered and the axle is fully inserted in the dropouts. If the quick release lever is resting on the widest part of the cam follower, like this, turn it slightly so that it nestles into the curve of the cam follower. This is how it should look. Make sure that your friend holding the bike steady has it fully upright with some weight on the front wheel to help ensure that the fork is fully and evenly inserted onto the axle. Again, do not rely on a kickstand to steady your bike. Open the quick release lever all the way. Hold the thumb nut steady with one hand while you spin the quick release lever clockwise with the other hand. Tighten it as much as you can by hand. At this point, the lever should be too tight for you to close halfway. Loosen it by a 1/4 turn and try again. Repeat until you can close the lever halfway. Close the lever. This should be difficult and should leave an imprint in your hand. Fine-tuning the tightness can take several tries. If you are not able to exert great force on the quick release lever, get help from a professional bike mechanic. Double check that the closed lever isn't touching any bike components like the fork or a fender bracket, which could keep it from closing completely. Check that the same amount of dropout is visible under the axle on each side of the bike. If there's a difference, your axle is not fully inserted into both dropouts, and you'll need to repeat the previous steps, starting at the point where you check that both cone springs are pointing inward. Perform 3 tests on your front wheel. First, with your helper holding the front of the bike off the ground, spin the front wheel to ensure it has no wobble or looseness. Second, while straddling the bike with hands on the handlebars, squeeze the front brake lever with your left hand. Rock the bike forward and backward and ensure the front brake is securely keeping the front wheel from turning and that there's no play or wiggle in the wheel, handlebars, or front forks. Third, inspect the quick release lever and ensure it has remained tightly closed and is not touching the front fork or any other part of the bike. Any sign of play or wiggle is a sign that you may not have properly secured the front wheel and that you should repeat the installation process. Perform these tests before every ride.
Remove the protective packaging from the rear wheel without touching the brake rotor. Rotate the right crank towards the back of the bike to check the chain alignment. Make sure the chain runs through the drivetrain smoothly. If the chain skips or jumps, the drivetrain may need to be aligned before your first ride. Get help from a local bike shop or contact Rad Power Bike's product support for assistance. Ensure the taillight is angled properly so it can be seen and adjust as needed. To ensure the handlebar stem clamp is securely tightened, perform a handlebar twist test. Stand at the front of the bike and brace the front wheel between your feet and lower legs. Hold both handlebar grips and push forward with one hand while pulling back with the other hand. Push and pull with about 20 pounds of force with each hand. Then switch hands so the opposite hands are pushing and pulling with about 20 pounds of force. Make sure the handlebar and the front wheel are still properly aligned. Check for any movement or changes in the alignment of the stem relative to the direction of the front wheel. If the stem twists out of alignment, use a 4mm Allen wrench to loosen the stem clamp bolts evenly, a half turn at a time, alternating between bolts until you can remove them. Apply a small amount of grease to the bolt threads and keep the bolts and their split washers nearby for reinstallation. Align the stem so the handlebar is perpendicular to the front wheel as shown. Reinstall the stem clamp bolts and tighten partway until the bolts touch the other side of the clamp and you feel some resistance. Then use a torque wrench to tighten the bolts evenly, 1/4 turn at a time, and alternating between bolts until both bolts are torqued evenly to 10 Nm. Once the torque wrench indicates that both bolts are properly secured, check that each bolt is properly secured 2 more times. Start at the top bolt, torque to 10 Nm, then switch to the bottom bolt and torque to 10 Nm. Repeat once more to verify the torque of each bolt. Perform a twist test again. If the handlebar and stem can still rotate out of alignment with the front wheel, contact our product support team for more help. If there is no movement in the stem, the bolts have been properly torqued. Use the key to turn on the battery and check that the battery is locked to the frame. Locate the bell, which is part of the brake lever on the rider's left side. Learn how to use this so you can notify others when you approach and pass them while riding. Refer to the owner's manual for more tips on how to ride rad, important details related to safety, maintenance, and adjusting the bike for fit and comfort. Read it fully, keep it for future reference, and download the most recent owner's manual content from radpowerbikes.com/help. Check that all hardware on the bike is torqued to the recommended values listed in the owner's manual. Work through the safety checklist in the owner's manual and test the bike fully before riding. To make sure your bike is ready for any adventure, plan to get a tune-up from a local, certified, and reputable bike mechanic within the break-in period after the first 50 to 100 miles of riding. After that, keep up with the regular maintenance, which will likely be less frequent depending on how and where you ride.
Never let anyone operate this bike unless they are at least 16 years old and have read the operating instructions detailed in the owner's manual. The age requirement for e-bikes may be higher than 16 in your area. Check your local laws and rules for the areas where you intend to ride. Whenever you ride, wear closed-toed shoes, comfortable clothing, and, of course, always wear a helmet. Ensure you can be seen by others on the road by wearing bright and reflective clothing, and ensuring your headlight and tail light are always on and visible to others. Like all vehicles, e-bikes need to be checked regularly to ensure nothing will jeopardize your safety or the safety of those around you. Follow all safety instructions and checklists in the owner's manual. The latest update to the owner's manual for your rad bike is always available on our website at radpowerbikes.com/help. Make it a habit to thoroughly check your bike before every ride.
Reach out to our product support team if you have any questions and ride rad.